On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what do we have in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, we've got a very exciting show for you all today, and it's quite an unusual one. As always, we've got two guests, but the two guests, Richard Freeman and Richard Muirhead, are on at the same time, and they're going to be discussing the contents of Richard Muirhead's incredibly eclectic, not to say eccentric, magazine, Flying Snake.
I really like the old credits.
And now, it's Gwen Dibley's Pearls of Wisdom.
The ground is always frozen. Amazing things.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. As regular viewers will know, every Wednesday evening at about 6:30 for a quarter of an hour, and every Saturday afternoon at 3:00 for half an hour, we bring you a whole general mishmash. And please, I still haven't found out which Douglas Adams novel the word whole general mishmash comes from, so please somebody put me out of my misery. A whole general mishmash of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. By the way, before we get on to the next question, which is what is surreality, I want to explain that that noise in the background is not Richard Freeman. Richard waves to the boys and girls. He's being very languid again. It's not Richard Freeman, it is actually Archie, the CFZ dog, who is asleep underneath the blanket on Richard's lap and is snoring away happily. But we had just come to a very important question. What is surreality?
What's surreality, Uncle Richard?
It's the kind of feeling you get when Bullseye's on the telly. In one, a pharmaceutical cluster incorporating pills on wire. In two, a transparent motorised fish cake. In three, a special magnetic bull rush. In four, the entire cast of Run for Your Life at the Lyric Theatre Hammersmith.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. No, who am I kidding? It was the best of times, because this week we have two guests in the studio, and they both have the same name. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a tale of two Richards. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this week I'm very, very pleased to have with me here in Wolseley my old friend Richard Freeman.
Hello.
And my even older friend Richard Muirhead.
Hello.
And they're all here with Archie.
And welcome to my new show. It's called Archie and His Uncles, and each episode I sit on the uncles' laps and they give me treats.
That's enough of that, Archie. Me and Louis, the producer, have had enough of you trying to make every episode about different people giving you treats. Because this episode has nothing to do with little dogs and treats. It's all about us having a look at the 5 favourite stories that Richard Muirhead, who's my old mate and editor of a magazine called Flying Snake, he pulls out the first 5 issues, and he and the other Richard, probably still with Archie and Captain Peanut Philobulax the Magnificent, sitting on the sofa with them, will be discussing the stories in some depth. Enjoy. So, Richard, in fact, we're going to have to do this differently. So, Mr. Muirhead, because for each time I say Richard, both of you think I'm talking to them, and the dog then gets involved. So Richard Muirhead, Editor Richard, what is your first story that you want to discuss with other Richard, Explorer Richard?
The first story is about the South Shields devil crabs. This is issue 1 of Flying Snake. Story by Mike Hallowell, who was reading Ronan Coghlan, I can't pronounce it. Ronan Coughlin's A Dictionary of Cryptozoology. And Mike found in that a mention of these unknown crabs in South Shields, not far from where Mike lives. And these crabs have been known since Victorian times, and they're known as velvet crabs because the grass on the rocks in South Shields felt just like a bed of velvet to the feet. Anyway, these crabs could apparently grow to a width of at least 14 inches. And somebody called Trevor Wilkinson, who was a reader of Mike's Racescape newspaper column, told Mike they can grow to, I quote, an enormous size. Just how enormous he was unable to say. So is this crab, is it a known species that just is occasionally recorded to grow to a huge size? Or was it a genuine cryptid type of crab, unknown to science? That is the gist of the article.
Well, there is a species of crab called the velvet crab.
Right.
I'm not sure how big they get.
Talks about.
Well, I've just looked them up, and velvet crabs, and there are several different species of velvet crab, but none of them seem to grow up to just up further than up to about 4 inches across. Whether that is the whole span from leg to leg or just the shell, I don't know. But there is a heck of a difference between 4 inches and 14 inches, like the ones in the story which Richard's just told us. But there is another possibility, isn't there, Richard?
Well, the biggest crab you get in British waters is an invasive species. It comes from Russia, from the Siberian end of Russia. It's called the king crab, and they can have a leg span of 6 feet. They were introduced into the Atlantic in the 1960s in fish farms and got free, colonised the waters around Norway, and now they've made it down into Britain, and they're enormous things. Most of the length, or rather the width, is the legs, the elongate legs, but the actual carapace can be, like a dustbin lid. But these couldn't be the things from the velvet beds off South Shields, because they've been around apparently since Victorian times, so they must be something different. So we have a crab-related mystery.
And about, that's about 20 years ago, when Mike Hallowell first told us about the velvet crabs, our old friend Dave Curtis, who lives at a place called Seaham-on-Sea, which is a bit further south, but not much further south than where Mike lives in South Shields, he told us that there is a type of crab called the Seaham crown crab, which all the local fishermen know about, and it's taught about in the schools in the town, but that as far as he is aware, nobody has yet managed to identify them. That has been a minor objective of the CFZ for about 20 years now, and hopefully somewhere along the line we're going to be able to put this story to bed once and for all.
It'd be nice to go up there and try and catch some of these velvet crabs, or see if there's something different. I don't think anybody's bothered to do it, have they?
Not that I'm aware. Thank you, Richard. That's a really good one. That's a really good start. Okay.
It was crabtastic.
Okay, Richard, what's our second story?
Our second story is about a mystery English cat from the 17th century known as the cypress cat, as in the tree, not the country. I'll read out a section on the cypress cat. John Fleming, in his History of British Animals, 1828, referred to another British naturalist known as Christopher Merritt, an English physician and scientist, compiled one of the first lists of the flora, fauna and minerals of Britain. The Panax Rerum Naturalarium Britannicarium mentions a cypress cat that was bred in the House of Nobles. Now, I contacted a gentleman called Mr. Massetti. I think he was an Italian naturalist around about 2009, who contacted me and said, I cannot understand why they named this cat a cypress cat. The term may underline the fact that it was an exotic element to the biogeography of the UK. Like the cypress, it is extraneous to the natural vegetation of Great Britain and Ireland. In any case, one might refer this spotted cat to many wild, large to medium-sized feeders of the Old and New Worlds, such as the cheetah, the Iberian lynx, the African serval, several Asian representatives of the genus Prionotheliaris severtos, so I can't pronounce that, and or of an American genus of cat. So whatever it was, it could have been one of several exotic Old or New World cats that somehow found its way into Britain.
So Richard Freeman there is, we have an exotic spotted cat in the north of England.
Well, there's not an awful lot to go on that story. It's woefully lacking in details. It sounds just like some sort of exotic cat, or maybe even a domestic breed from abroad that was raised by some nobles, rather than something that's running around Britain wild.
What it reminded me of was the currently popular breed, the Bengal, which is a introgressive hybrid of, I believe, Siamese cats with Prionotheliaris bengalensis, the Asian leopard cat.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if somebody from one of their excursions to the east brought back Asian leopard cats and tried to breed them with a British moggy, just to see what happened.
There's the savannah cat as well, which is serval hybridised with a domestic cat, isn't it?
And they're much larger as well. Bengals are the same sort of size as a domestic moggy. They don't get any bigger than Peanut here. And Peanut's quite a large cat. But the servals are considerably larger. And these what are they called, savannah cats, have been responsible for a whole string of mystery cat reports, both in Britain and in the United States.
Apparently, They were first bred. The breed was first developed by civil servants.
Oh dear.
Oh dear, yes, Richard. So, Richard, what's number 3?
The third story is about a very strange bird that turned up in Kwangtung, or it'd be pronounced Guangzhou province in southern China. The story is from the Singapore Daily Advertiser of May the 18th, 1893. A man hailing from Nanhei district in Kwangtung states that an uncommon looking bird was captured there in the country last winter. The bird stands 3 feet high from the ground and has the head of a human being, whilst its body is covered with hair several inches in length. On its appearance the country people were much alarmed, and a large crowd set out to exterminate the uncommon animal for fear it should be a dangerous customer to harbour. The person who managed to save it from the mob and had the courage to capture it has made a good thing out of it. In addition to its strange appearance, the bird is said to be a most modest creature, avoiding the gaze of curious people, as if it were too bashful to let people see it, and it is only at the command of its master that it will show itself. I can only guess, and it is a pure guess, that this was a juvenile ostrich, because an ostrich has a very vaguely, to me, human-looking head. Well, actually, I thought another possibility was an emu, because the emu, to my mind, it doesn't have feathers. Well, from a distance it looks like hair on its body, but what an emu was doing in Guangzhou in the late 19th century, I don't know.
Ostriches and emus look nothing like human beings. Their faces don't even vaguely resemble human beings, so I don't know what he was on about.
No, that was me, what I was on about. I couldn't think of anything else it could be. It couldn't really be anything I can think of.
It could be simply a sort of a hoax. It could be a sideshow gaff
Yeah,
that the guy was touting around.
sure.
What's a sideshow gaff, Richard?
A gaff is a hoaxed item. So, for example, a Fiji mermaid would have been a sideshow gaff.
And you can't think of any living creature that this could be?
No, there is no bird that has a face that resembles a human being.
The only thing that vaguely I wondered was that it could have been one of those really peculiar chickens, the ones from, I think it's Thailand, that have those really, either Vietnam or Thailand, that have those really, really thick legs. And they look so weird that if somebody put a paper mache head on it or something, because it could be, I mean, I tend to go along with your sideshow gaff idea, but I think it's more likely to be a living, I don't know if there's a word for a living gaff.
I'm not sure. My granddad once said in Blackpool, when he was a young man, there was a sideshow showing the biggest rat in the world that had been caught in the sewers of Liverpool. And he paid his money to go in, and it was just a kaipu.
Yeah. I remember reading in the transactions of the Devonshire Association that a giant rat had been found, I think, in Topsham, and it turned out to be a kaipu that had got there through fair means or foul. But it's an interesting story, but I can't see how it can be something real.
No.
So So, Richard, what's story number 4?
Story number 4 is about a winged toad in Suffolk in 1662. I found out about this story via an online database called Early Modern Letters Online, based in the Bodleian Library in Oxford. Now, I'm not going to read the letter. The letter is between two brothers, dated September the 25th, 1662, and it is a description of a highly strange animal which I called a winged toad, but it could have been a kind of snake. It could be a known species of snake. I'm not necessarily saying it is a cryptid, but I will attempt to give you a description from the Old English. It's not worth reading out because the language is so different from what we use today. Basically, the creature was above 1.5 yards long, head like a toad but very large, a yellowish ring around the neck, 2 wings as broad as a man's hand and like a bat's, 4 yellow short legs like a duck, as big as a lusty man's thigh. Whatever a lusty man is, right?
Me?
The belly yellow speckled with black spots, head and back all covered with thick scales which shine in the sun, reflecting all manner of colours. It was seen eating a water hen, most often seen before the sun rises in the morning and about noon when the sun shines bright and hot. That's really amounts to the description of it, whatever it was.
Oh, it's certainly not a toad.
No.
It sounds like a baby dragon. It has 4 legs, wings like a bat, a serpentine body.
Oh, there's a bit more information.
Okay, hang on a second. Yes, Richard.
I forgot to read out that Dr. Sugar, and from flying toads to snakes with wings, mentions a Welsh animal known as, I can't pronounce that.
The guava.
A water leaper.
Oh, the water leaper, yeah.
And basically the water leaper reminded me of this dragon or winged weirdie, whatever it was.
The water leaper doesn't have legs though. It's supposed to have like a toad-like face, a long tail and wings, and it leaps up out of the water. Some people have thought it might have been a stingray or something.
Yeah.
But this thing has legs.
This thing has legs, yes.
It has 4 legs, 2 wings, serpentine body and a toad-like head.
So it could have been some like a sort of dragon type thing.
Mm.
One thing that comes to me though is it sounds very demonic in shape and size, and it makes me wonder. It was only 2 years after the restoration of the monarchy, and Charles II, who was a Catholic, came back to rule over England, and there were a lot of people in England who were Protestants of one denomination or another, or one sort or another, and some of the more extreme Protestants who had quite possibly been followers of Oliver Cromwell and his ilk might have decided that the reappearance of a Catholic king on the throne was blasphemy, heresy, something else beginning with E, and made up the story of a fearsome monster just to show what horrors the fact that Britain not only had a king, but a king who was a follower of the Church of Rome were going to conjure up.
Well, I think it sounds like a real animal to me.
It sort of sounds a little bit like the St Leonard's Forest dragon as well, which was a small serpentine creature, although that was probably a cobra.
Where did these animals come from then, Richard? If
The St Leonard's Forest dragon. There was an older legend about a dragon in the woods, but the St Leonard's Forest dragon, which was seen in Shakespeare's time, I believe, that was described as being 9 feet long and feeding on rabbits, and when cattle or men drew near to it, it would raise up its head and look arrogantly around, which sounds like a cobra raising up its hood. And it was supposed to kill men and dogs by casting forth venom, but not to eat their bodies. So it could have been something, an exotic brought back by a traveller from abroad.
And the fact that they're casting forth venom does sound like a spitting cobra, doesn't it?
The yellowish ring, doesn't the grass snake have a...
It does, yeah.
Maybe could this have been a deformed grass snake?
Not if it's got 4 legs like a duck.
That's true, yeah.
And wings like a bat, and eats moorhens. No, it couldn't.
But it is interesting that an acquaintance of mine, the late Clinton Keeling, in one of his books, he wrote about there being giant grass snakes in Suffolk, and his theory was that they had been of the Italian I'm not sure of the subspecies or a race of grass snakes, which can apparently go up to 6 foot in length. And he believed that these things were so much bigger than sort of normal grass snakes that anybody would seen, that they took on, or they were given by Chinese whistlers, they were given miraculous attributes which actually they didn't have. They were just a bloody great big snake. So Richard, I'm very much enjoying this, and I think this is a jolly good idea of yours. What is the 5th and final story for us?
Final story is about a possible bear-dog hybrid from the Weekly Reno Gazette on November the 22nd, 1883. A queer case. Evil associations corrupt good morals. On a ranch near Petaluma is an animal that is unmistakably a cross between a California brown bear or a cinnamon bear and a dog. It was caught when young in the mountains near Salinas 14 years ago and has been kept by its present owner ever since. The Courier says of it, in colour and appearance, when laying down, it would be taken for a bear, but when standing, the dog cross is plainly visible. The head and tail show the bruin, and feet are about half bear and half dog, except the crook of the hind leg, which is longer and more dog-like. His habits are more of the bear order, being morose and sulky, and during the winter inclined to sleep, and is ugly when disturbed. His bark is that of a Newfoundland dog, while his growl is that of a bear. Altogether it is a singular beast and an animal cross we never supposed existed.
Well, that sounds to me just like a large, hairy, odd-looking dog, because you do see big dogs that look like bears. Lots of dogs look like bears, especially big mongrel dogs can look like big hairy bears.
There was that one that was photographed by hand tour.
Yes,
was that one?
Yeah, that was a
it was a Dulux
Newfoundland. No, it was a Newfoundland cross.
Was it? I thought it was a Dulux dog, one of the old English sheepdogs.
No, it was a Newfoundland cross.
I know somebody wrote to me and said that they'd made a discovery and that they said it was a new species of giant hyrax. I wrote back and said politely that I didn't think there was any evidence to suggest that, and then he just started to rant about how I was suppressing his research, so I just blanked him. So, do you think there's anything of interest about this California bear, which might be a dog and might be a bear?
I think it's someone's got a dog that looks a bit like a bear, and they've made up this story about finding it in the woods, and it's a bear dog hybrid. Utter nonsense.
I just noticed what I didn't read out. I didn't realise that there's another page and a quarter of a Facebook. I put the story on Facebook and I got a few replies. Somebody says it's genetically impossible, but somebody called Cursed Mason de Raven says, is this stemming from the folklore that the Newfoundland dog breed originally came from the Viking bear dogs, whatever they were?
Viking bear dogs are a breed of dog, they're bloody massive, that the Vikings used to use to hunt bears.
There's nothing to do with a bear dog hybrid.
No.
Okay, well, that person's completely wrong then.
I'm afraid so.
I thought interesting anyway.
It is
interesting little snippet.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the first time we've done this. I think that when we put out the second volume of Richard's collected issues of Flying Snake, Richard, just wave it at the camera, please. This is volume 1, which is a fantastic book. Bring it down a little bit because, yes, lovely. Volume 1, which is a fantastic book, and we will be doing volume 2, hopefully later in the year. And I think that we will come back and revisit this idea, because I don't know about you two, Richard Freeman and Richard Muirhead, but I enjoyed that. I thought it was great fun.
Yeah, so
and I think it would be a good thing to do again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. And we've done it. And I'm going to...
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell, or else you won't be told when the next show's going to be.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
And that's about it for this episode, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say a big thank you to my guests this time, who have been Richard Muirhead and Richard Freeman, and to the people but for whom blah blah blah, my producer Louis, Graham, the Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and also the bloke who pushes me around the labyrinthine corridors of North Devon District Hospital, and has been doing so for the last 4 months, dear boy. And a big thank you too to Miss Judy, who has made such a nice job of making the house habitable again. I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What am I talking about on Wednesday? I believe that Richard Freeman and I are going to be looking at a book. No, we're not. No, we're not. I know exactly what it is. We're going to be talking about strange marine stories from off the coast of Cornwall. That's quite a good one. I'm looking forward to that. And on Saturday, we'll be back and we're going to actually bring you the exclusive interview with the Vietnam vet about his encounter with rock apes in Vietnam, which was done by David Scott, our Canadian representative. So that's 2 fantastic shows that I'm very much looking forward to, and I hope you are too. And so, because I'll be back on Saturday and on Wednesday, are you waiting, Mr. McCrinnan? If you're there, I'll be seeing you.